TechTales 116, good morning. Just, I don't know, half an hour ago I finished TechTales 115, so this is the next day's TechTales episode. This is the other office that had a power issue I dealt with this morning. The first office from TechTales 115, I was working with them in the morning, and then mid-morning I went to this office, and then around noon I was back at the first office. And they had a power outage yesterday related to the high winds, but their power came back on, except that their internet wasn't working. So I had talked through that over the phone with my client, had her power cycle the Comcast router. She actually already did that. She knew about doing that piece, and so I asked her about the lights on the switches. She sent me some pictures by cell phone and a video showing the flickering lights at one point. I don't have those ready to show you, but I have my own pictures to show. And then I told her, well, you better call Comcast and see if they have a service problem. Comcast reported, no, we can get through to the modem. You're fine. So I went out, and here's pictures and descriptions of what I found. And it's a little odd. So here, this was the last picture I took, actually, because I realized I didn't have a full view of this, and I've shown this setup before. So this cabinet is mounted on the wall, and these latches in the back, they unclip so that I can swing the whole cabinet out with all the weight of all the equipment that's in there hanging on that hinge. It's kind of a scary amount of weight to me, but also this front door can open to just gain access to the front. So I'm going to go back one photo, and this shows those latches better, and there's actually a key hole back there too. Now I'm going to left arrow a whole bunch through some photos and then run through them going the right direction. So this is the first photo I actually took. So this shows that whole case opening and access to the wires. I want to point out here there's a surge protector on this ledge back here, and I was concerned about whether she had used the power switch on that surge protector in order to power cycle the Comcast router. And here's why. So there's that power switch there, but none of these power cables are for the Comcast router. And we'll see that in a little bit. Here's the Comcast router. Right now I have it unplugged from power. You can see a little piece of the metal contact there. There's two Ethernet cables connected here. When I was talking to her on the phone, there was a third one plugged in here. I had her follow those cables to where they were connected and disconnect them at each port. So disconnect here and reconnect. Can disconnect this one and reconnect, and then the other ends of them. But then this third one, she said it was just hanging loose, wasn't connected to anything. So she wound up disconnecting that and just leaving it on the bottom of the case. But that third one was not long enough to reach around to the front of these switches, and that's a significant point. Then here's the reason why I was concerned about how she power cycled the Comcast router, because this is the power connection for the Comcast router, and it's plugged into this battery backup. So if she turned off that surge protector switch, the Comcast router would still have power. And now that I think about it, I realize I never actually did clarify that with her, but that turns out to be irrelevant. And we'll see why going forward here. We're going to come back to that battery backup in a little bit. So I want to point out there's a light blue Ethernet and a dark blue Ethernet coming from the Comcast router. This dark blue Ethernet is connected to the back of this box right here, which is their surveillance camera system. It records their surveillance cameras. And then this beige Ethernet coming out of it wraps around here, and it goes out to the front, and it connects to one of the network switches, which turns out to be a weird thing. And we'll get to that in a moment. For now, remember that there's this light blue that goes up to the front panel of the network switches. This dark blue goes to the surveillance system. The surveillance system has a beige Ethernet that comes out to the front for the Ethernet switches. Now the next picture, this is just showing, I have a better view of those two cables, except you don't see where they connect to, so nothing else there. Moving on. Now this is a better view of that battery backup. I want to point out over here, this label here says battery surge and noise suppression. So this side is battery outlets. This side is just surge and noise suppression. So all these devices are not getting any battery backup. So the only thing this battery backup is serving is the Comcast router, which is kind of pointless because there's no other equipment that is also backed up by battery. I think they probably would want the surveillance system to be on battery backup. It's pointless to have the network switches backed up on battery, at least as far as the computers are concerned. However, I take that back a little bit. The surveillance system, those switches need to be backed up because those switches are hosting the cameras, the surveillance cameras. So both switches need to be backed up by battery and the surveillance system. Well, it looks like that takes actually 4 power connections, and there aren't enough for that. So I need to have that conversation with them. What is the intention there? Then moving on to the next picture. I got to zoom out of that first. Next picture. So what I did next was I took one of their computers on the ground and connected an Ethernet cable to it. When my client called Comcast and they said it's working fine, what Comcast asked her to do is connect a laptop directly to the Comcast router in order to prove it has signal. She wasn't equipped to do that, so that's what I did here. Is I took a long Ethernet cable, connected it directly to the Comcast. Immediately, this computer received internet signal. Then I start changing that. So here's that Ethernet that now, instead of plugged into the back of the Comcast router, I have it plugged in to the bottom network switch. And when I connect it here, it gets internet signal. Yeah. And then, so I think, that's interesting. Then on the next picture, I connected to this switch up here, and that computer does not get internet signal. Now, normally I would have a Ethernet cable going from one switch to the other switch, daisy chaining the switches together to provide the internet signal, but none of these wires were connected between the two switches. So I theorized that this blue Ethernet that's coming from the, let's see if I get these colors right. I'm getting confused by this. Down here, it's the beige one that comes from the surveillance system. This light blue comes from Comcast. So let me see if I can restructure that here. This this is the beige coming from the surveillance system. So when I plug the computer into this one, it does not get internet signal. This Ethernet here is coming directly from the router. When I plug this into this switch, the computer did get internet signal. So I said that backwards a little while ago. Does he know what he's doing? He seems confused. That was a troll on one of my live chats recently said that. And yeah, I'm doing these pictures on the same day because I realize if I wait a few days, it's even more difficult to reconstruct what happened. But basically, the bottom line is from one of these switches, I could get internet signal, from the other I didn't. So what I did is let's advance here a little further forward. That's the back of that surveillance system. I brought in this green cable. I connected this green cable to one of the open ports on the Comcast router and connected it to the upper switch. This is the upper of the two switches. So that's the one that was not providing internet signal, because that's where I had to connect the Comcast router to. So once I did that, then everybody's internet came up. Yeah, I'm still there. There's where I got that green Ethernet connected to the Comcast router. I think I'm more confused than I was going through this. So it gives you the gist of it. They're all up and running now. And the thing to follow up on is that battery backup to see what they want to be providing battery power to. Okay, so I hope that was useful or informative, or maybe just something to laugh at me about. Have a great day. Catch you later. Goodbye.